And next we have Reborn Apocalypse, a LitRPG Wuxia story, Volume 1, written by L.M. Kerr. It is a massive 692 pages. It is $4.95. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. If you could turn back the clock and fix all the mistakes you've ever made, would you? From the author of the award-winning web novel Reborn, Evolving from Nothing, comes the tale of Micheal Care, a swordsman that can only be considered a middling warrior in humanity's last army. Michael's answer to that question would be quite simple. Yes. 1,000,000 times yes. Humanity has fallen, killed by stronger races of beings after being warped away into a new reality, the mystical 7 layers. Humanity's goal has been simple. Make it through all 7 layers and reach heaven. Humanity failed. Humanity died. Micheal Care's memories have been transported back into his past self thanks to a magical artifact he found by chance. He is no divine chosen hero. He is no divinely picked hero. Can he change the future? Can he catch up to the mightiest warriors of humanity and surpass them? So there we go. This is a story that has actually a pretty big following online, where there are many more chapters of the story than there are in this first volume. Again, this is essentially a serialized story online that's being collected, edited, and polished for production on Amazon. So the story doesn't as much have an ending as it has like a place it's stopping, because this series does continue on. And the author has said he does plan to continue on publishing them on Amazon, so you can go online and read the continuation of the series. This story is actually really similar to Towers of Heaven. If you've read that series, a novel rather, is particularly popular recently. It's similar to that one in both premise and basic content. It's not a copy or anything, but they both use a very common setup of humanity failing sometime in the future to superior forces, and the main character traveling back in time and using his foreknowledge of events to become overpowered as he tries to save humanity. So that's the setup. They've had the same setup, and it's actually fairly common. It's a very common setup for these kind of Wuxia type of stories. Both series also have RPG apocalypse settings where the people fight more powerful monsters as they ascend levels, with the ultimate goal of beating the big bad guys at the very top to save humanity. However, aside from that premise, the stories diverge. Like, they're very different. Reborn Apocalypse has an original story, has original dungeon levels, and in particular, the way that the story differentiates itself from others like it, with a similar premise, I should say, is that it uses a point-driven RPG system to advance character progression, where they can buy a variety of fantasy and sci-fi powers from a system store. The story also leans a little more towards Wuxia cultivation for the main character's power set in particular, which is going to be fun for some people. I liked it. I actually liked the progression mechanics in this story a little bit more, to be honest. It's a lot more detailed. It's a lot more thought driven about, oh, this is what I'm going to do and why I'm going to do it and how I'm planning it out. And I think the author in this one uses his foreknowledge a little bit better about, and taking advantage of things. And for some people, it might be a little annoying that the main character already knows so much. But for me, it was well done enough. Like, this entire novel, even though it's 692 pages, felt a lot shorter because there's so much action. The story itself is very action oriented. It's really fun. It's kind of a slice of life adventuring kind of story, just because of the nature of the original project, which is getting an online serial story. So you have to be okay with that if you're going to enjoy the novel. There's definitely a kind of a plot arc-ish kind of thing here. There's some things that the main character does, and there's definitely a big bad guy to fight at some point. So it has a decent arc, but you can tell it's a serialized story. But for me, I had a good time with it. There's good monster fighting, good cultivation. There's an OP main character, an RPG apocalypse, and I actually really liked the point-driven system. Instead of using experience points, essentially fight monsters, get the points for killing them or other players, and use those to invest in either in buying either items or like powers from the system store. So it's kind of a neat thing. I liked it. Combined a bunch of different things I enjoyed, especially this first level in this novel. For me, had a good time with it. Get score 7.8 out of 10. It was almost an 8 for me. It just wasn't as original setting as I was hoping. It didn't really bring anything too new as much as it was combining things I already enjoyed. But it did well. Again, good action stuff. That's probably the biggest draw for me. It had really good pacing, so it was enjoyable. Again, that's Reborn Apocalypse, a LitRPG Wuxia story, Volume 1, with a really good score of 7.8 out of 10.